reminder. So I figured that might be something that people have value, especially not final expense, but face-to-face Medicare agents that are transitioning to phones.
Yep.
Are we live now? We're good?
We are live.
Okay.
So, hey,
hi, everybody.
Me and Medicare Bob back again. We decided after yesterday, I think we intended to give more like value, and we did like a long overview pitch and kind of conceptual concepts. But so today, Bob was out on the golf course, doing what rich people do, and he called me.
6 feet away. We were 6 feet away.
So he called me and he had an idea. It's one of the things that we were going to do in the coaching group. One of the first things we were going to do. So let's just go ahead and let everybody see that one, because I think it would help a lot of people and just give people a taste of what we're trying to put together for people ongoing. So, Bob, what's up, man?
Hey, buddy. Yep. So really quick. Hi, everybody. I actually want to do like a value 10-minute, 15-minute coaching session, something that we do with our agents. This is a training that is like day 7 when I hire a new agent. It's just a quick, something that seems simple, but it's really, really important to do when you're on the phone. So this is for somebody who, if you already have some phone experience, you might already be doing a couple of these things. If you are transitioning, which is who I'm really passionate about helping right now. I'll help anybody, but I definitely want to help the people that are never done this before and they're transitioning from selling face to face over the phone. So in this quick coaching video, I'm going to talk about when you're selling over the phone. It's very, very important that you do not explain Medicare, is that you sell Medicare. So we have a lot of really good agents that are really good at, there's a lot of agents out there that are really good at explaining Medicare. But when you're selling over the phone, if you just explain Medicare, you are bringing a value to the client, yes, but you're going to get to the end of the phone call and that person is going to say things like, I can't afford it. And I'm talking about Med Supp here. I can't afford it, or I need to think about it. And so many people ask me, what is something I say to close somebody, or my top agents say to close somebody? And the reality is and I know this is kind of ABC, always be closing, but the right way to sell over the phone is you have to really be assuming the close and closing the whole time. And that doesn't mean you have to be super aggressive and like that. What you have to understand when someone's buying something over the phone is they're not really, if you're having one phone conversation with them and you're not sitting across them at a table, it's harder for them to follow along with everything that you're saying. They're not going to remember everything that you said. They probably won't even remember half of it. But what they're going to remember is the feeling they have during certain points of your presentation. So what you really have to do, okay, is you can't just explain Medicare. You have to sell it, meaning you have to paint the picture of when you're going over something. So let's say you do your intro, you do your fact find, and now you're going to do an educational pitch. So here's a couple of examples of explaining versus selling. Okay. You're doing your educational pitch. So you talk about, let's just talk about Medicare A and B. Okay. So you tell them, and if you work with us, I'll tell you how we exactly get to this point, but most of you you'll know how to get there, but we can help. But let's say you get to the point where now you're explaining Medicare. So the way we do that is very simple, and I'll, give you guys an abbreviated version of that so I can go on with this point. But we'll say, so here's me explaining Medicare A and B. There are 2 parts to Medicare. Medicare Part A is for your hospital bills. Medicare Part B is for your medical and doctor bills. Well, the Medicare Part A deductible is around $1,400 this year. And then if God forbid you're admitted in the hospital, starting day 61, Medicare is going to charge you a little over $300 per day. And then with Medicare Part B as in boy, you have a Medicare Part B deductible. This year it's $198. And then after you pay that, Medicare steps in and pays 80%. And then you have to pay the 20%. And with Medicare, you don't have to, it's not an HMO or PPO. You can go to any doctor, any hospital in the country, and you have nationwide coverage. That's explaining Medicare. Okay, very simply, but that is explaining how Medicare works. Here is how you want to sell Medicare. When I say that is sales 101 is you want to create value in the product that you sell, right? So I'm just talking about Medicare supplements here for right now. So you want to create value in the product that you sell. So the way you do that is you got to point out and get them to understand that Medicare A and B is not enough. So here's kind of how I would sell it instead of explaining Medicare A and B. Okay. All right. There's two parts to original Medicare. There's Medicare Part A. That's going to be for all your hospital bills. And there's Medicare Part B as in boy. And that's going to be for all your medical and doctor bills. Now, what's nice about Medicare is you can keep your doctor. You don't have to get any referrals. It's not an HMO or PPO. You can actually go to any doctor, any hospital in the country that accepts Medicare. So you don't have to get a referral or prior authorization or anything like that. The problem with Medicare is by itself, it doesn't pay everything. I'm going to go over with you a couple of the big things that Medicare doesn't pay. So with Medicare Part A, as I mentioned, that's for your hospital bills. Well, the problem with that is every time you go to the hospital, you're going to have to pay the first $1,400 every time before Medicare steps in and pays a dime. That's every single time. So if you go to the hospital once, you're going to pay $1,400. If 3 months later you go again, you're going to pay another $1,400. Then, if God forbid you're expended or you're admitted for an extended period of time, starting day 61, you have to pay over $300 a day. So you don't have to have that memorized, Mrs. Smith. Just keep in mind that if you go to the hospital, that $1,400 is not per year. That's every time you go. Now, with Medicare Part B, that's for all your medical and doctor bills. So this is for lab work, X-rays, your doctor visit, a specialist visit, if you get outpatient procedure or surgery or anything like that. Well, Medicare has a very small annual deductible of only $198. The problem is, after you pay that $198, Medicare is going to step in and only pay 80%. And that means you have to pay the other 20%. And this is the scariest part to Medicare because there's no limit to this 20%. So if you go for a knee replacement or cataract surgery, you're going to pay 20% of whatever that costs. If God forbid you get cancer or any other or heart attack or open heart surgery, you're going to pay 20% of that. And there's no limit to what Medicare charges you. There's no max out of pocket like what you're used to. So that's Medicare A and B. So A is for hospital, B is for medical. You can go to any doctor, any hospital that accepts Medicare. You have nationwide coverage. And you don't have to have everything memorized. Just keep in mind that every time you go to the hospital, it's going to cost a lot of money. And Medicare only pays 80%. And there's no limit to that 20%. All right. So that is a difference of explaining versus selling. And I know maybe a lot of you are watching this video and you're going, duh, I already do that. Fantastic. I have been through 50 agents. I have worked with hundreds, and you'd be surprised at how agents will just monotonely explain Medicare, and then they don't build the value. So now I'm going to go. Here's another opportunity. So what we do is we tell everybody after we explain Medicare A and B in our educational pitch that I know it feels like there's 100 options, but the good news is everything fits into one of two categories or two types of coverages. And so we go over Medicare Advantage. We do a T chart. We have them write it down. Here's a Medicare Advantage, and then we have them do, hey, here's a Medicare Supplement. So painting the picture for you guys, I just explained them that I just told them Medicare Advantage. So now I'm going to go to Medicare Supplement. So here's how you can explain a supplement plan versus selling a supplement. Just an example. All right, so now Medicare Supplement Plan, the way this works is it's going to work with your Medicare. So you stay on Medicare as your primary, A and B. So you're going to pay your Medicare Part B premium still. And then you're going to have a Medicare supplement plan, and you're going to pay a company additional premium. And that supplement plan is going to fill in the gaps to Medicare or fill in the holes to Medicare. And because you're still on Medicare, you have the right to go to any doctor, any hospital. The two most comprehensive plans that you can buy because you're aging into Medicare is Medicare Supplement Plan G, Medicare Supplement Plan N. Here's how Medicare Supplement Plan G works. It's going to pay the Part A deductible. It's going to pay the Part A co-insurance. It's going to pay the Part B 20%, but you would have to pay the $198. And then there's Medicare. If that's not in your budget, then there's a Medicare Supplement Plan in, and that's going to cover this, this, and that, which most of you guys know. So that is explaining Medicare supplement coverage, right? Medigap. The person may not have done anything wrong, right? And that person might be writing it down, following along with you. But here's how I try and how I've had success selling that. All right. So it's almost like I'm in a movie, right? Like I got to like go scene. So, all right. So I just did my T chart. So I'm on Medicare supplements and I go, okay, now on the right hand side, write down Medicare supplement. This is also called Medigap. This is the best coverage you've ever had in your life. Here's how it works. You're going to stay on Medicare A and B as your primary insurance company. So you're going to use your red, white, and blue Medicare card. And that's important because that means you keep your right to go to any doctor, any hospital. So you never have to get a referral or any type of prior authorizations. And you have nationwide coverage. You can go anywhere in the country as long as they accept Medicare. Medicare Supplement Plan G is the most comprehensive plan you can buy. I call this greatest value. You're going to pay an additional premium for a Medicare Supplement Plan G, but that's because it actually pays your bills. So you're going to pay around $100 or $120 a month. And in return, it's actually going to pay the bills that Medicare doesn't pay. So, Mrs. Smith, when you go to the hospital, it's going to pay that $1,400 for you every single time. So if you go to the hospital once, you're going to pay zero. If you go to the hospital 2 or 3 times, you're going to pay zero. If you're in the hospital for a week or you're in the hospital for 5 weeks, you're never going to have a hospital bill with this Medicare supplement plan. So, Mrs. Smith, if you go to the hospital 2 times next year, how much would you pay with a supplement? Right? And then be quiet for a second. So many people in sales on the phone think that silence is bad. What I did is I painted the picture and I got them feeling, what are they going to pay when they go to the hospital? I try to say they're going to pay 0, 2, or 3 times, but then I want them to regurgitate it back to me because that's what they're going to remember, that feeling of, if I get a supplement, I'm not going to have a hospital bill. So I asked them, so Mrs. Smith, how much would you pay? Now, I wait about 2 or 3 seconds. Sometimes they're with me, but you know what's shocking? And this is why it's so important and why I mean they're not retaining everything we're saying as we're doing it over the phone, is when you ask them, sometimes they still say, I don't know. Even though I just told them, you're going to pay 0, you're going to pay 0, you're going to pay 0. They still will say, so I don't want them to feel ashamed of that. So I'll wait 2 or 3 seconds. And then I'll say, that's right, Mrs. Smith, you pay 0. So if you're in the hospital for 6 weeks, how much would you pay? And I get them to say back 0. That's right. With a Medicare supplement plan, you're going to pay an additional premium, but in return, you're never going to have a hospital bill. So now they feel that. Then I go into, now, with the Medicare supplement, it also pays the 20% that Medicare doesn't pay. So remember I told you that 20% that has no limit? If you get cataract surgery or a knee replacement, Medicare is going to pay 80%, and then your supplement plan is going to come in and pay the other 20%. And I go into a little bit more, and I try to paint the picture. So the point there is you got to paint the picture. Paint the picture. If you just explain it, you're going to get, oh, I have to pay a premium for that? Or, oh, let me think about it. Okay. But if you paint the picture in sales 101, build a value in your product, you're going to hear those objections a lot less. Because, and the group that we decide to work with, I'll actually give my educational script to, our Medigap script to, and I'll give how we use, other things like that. But I just wanted to come on today, Brock, and give a couple examples of what we do that has been successful for us. And I don't know if I haven't read anything yet, but I'm hoping people find some value in that, because you got to do better than explaining it. You got to sell it. And it's just, those are just 2 points in your presentation where you're explaining Medicare and you got to paint the picture. And then when you talk about a supplement plan, get them to paint the picture, because I promise they won't remember that you said your supplement pays the Part A deductible, but they will remember how they felt when you got them to regurgitate that they're never going to have a hospital bill. And then when you quote them a Plan G at $105 a month, you're not going to hear, I can't afford that, because just
Right.
there's value there. This cup right here, guys, Medicare Bob cup. I don't know how much my girl paid for it. Maybe it was $6. But if President Trump or someone famous drank out of this, and I could sell it for a lot more, right? Because there's more value there. It's a terrible example, but the point is value in your product. And if you guys want the cup,
yeah, no, and it's the same thing. I run into this a lot with guys that sell, because we sell like you, we sell Medicare Advantage and MedSup. But I run into a lot of guys that lead Medicare Advantage, and they see somebody that's making, $1,500, $1,600 a month, and they think, oh, Medicare Advantage prospect. Not necessarily. It depends on, what they value. And so a lot of times when it's explained that way from the get-go, I did see some people talking about compliance. When you're talking about BEST and you're talking about MedSup, there's not really a compliance issue there. So,
zero.
I mean, obviously you can't, you're not going to go into a Medicare Advantage script and say, okay, United Healthcare is the best Medicare Advantage company, but when you're talking about MedSup, you're talking about conceptual, staying with Medicare and a supplement for health coverage is technically better. And I'm sure there are a handful, very few people that would argue against that, but they're probably just been kind of programmed to think that way at this point. But we sell both. It depends on the situation completely. We get paid. I mean, we're not biased based on what we make off of one anyway. Honestly, the reason I would even be biased, and this gets too much into off topic, but because people are bringing it up, MedSup, when we write a MedSup, very little to any ever complaints from our clients. Medicare Advantage is almost like having a PNC shop because you have to deal with a lot more issues. And if you think one's better than the other, probably the one where nobody ever complains is better.
So, well, here's the deal with that. So first, I know I have some friends that watched this yesterday, and anybody who watches us knows we get off topic sometimes. So I'm sorry. So that's why I wanted to get right into the value piece. So if you guys, hopefully you got value out of that. But talking about that, just Medicare Advantage versus MedSup, and we'll work with I think, what do we say? We're going to take what do we got? 4 spots left that we're going to mentor through this, and streamline it.
We're at 7. I think we were going to do 5 more tops.
5 more. Okay. So with those people, we'll talk more about the scripting and stuff like that. But I have 25, to answer your question, I have 25,000 clients. We have call center approvals with Medicare Advantage, MedSup. We do it compliantly. Okay. I'll teach you, that what I did there was as a Medicare supplement presentation. And the thing, we don't ask, what is your budget? We explain it, and then I have after we do our T-chart, I have a question that will help figure out what's in their budget afterwards. That has worked for us. But to your point, we have 10, I would say now, over because AEP, I would say about 13-14% of our clients are Medicare Advantage, and 90% of our customer service goes. So we have 25,000 clients. Say we got about 3,000 Medicare Advantage clients, and 90% of my customer service goes to them, which is not awful, and that's fine, and that's why we're here. But I mean, every other call center is trending, not every other call center, because a couple of our friends are still doing great with Medigap, but the big guys, Transact's an MA shop now, essentially. Spring's getting into MA. eHealth is an MA shop. These guys are, Health Plan One's long time been a pretty, MA dominant. I would buy Health Plan One's Medicare Advantage leads and sell them Medicare Supplement plans on accident.
Yeah, we have I don't know what the percentage is, but I know it's overwhelmingly leaning in favor of us actually taking people off Medicare Advantage and putting them on a MedSup way more often than we take somebody off of a MedSup and put them on a Medicare Advantage plan. It's also very rare that I actually take somebody off of a MedSup and put them on an Advantage plan. I mean, it has to be like they're about to cancel the MedSup and go with nothing, and then I talk to them about caps on out of pocket, and that's pretty rare.
I mean, you and I could spend 3 hours with a roundtable of very successful people. We could bring in Danielle from Boomer. We could bring in Jack. We could bring in tons of people and talk about what's better, MedSup or Advantage. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's whatever's right for the client. I'm a big believer, though, that when we fully educate people, that's why I think we're so heavy in Medigap. I think that if people knew if they choose an Advantage plan now, they have to. It's not a required CMS disclosure to tell people that if you go with a Medicare Advantage now, when you're in open enrollment and you later want to upgrade to a supplement, you have to medically qualify. For us, that's a pretty big takeaway. That for us, once our clients hear that, they're like, well, you know what? I would much rather start off with that plan and go to an Advantage than start off. And guys, I don't kill us because we're not anti-Advantage. That's not the point. But for you guys that are going from independent agents face to face, I would recommend you only sell MedSup. So when I hire an agent, and somebody said 25,000 clients, thanks, appreciate that. It's been a lot. That's the type of we're refining our craft and we've gotten better at it. But I would actually recommend, and you guys, I've seen your post right now on compliance stuff at MA. You guys, that's fine. The people I'm going to work with, if you've never done this over the phone before, I'm actually going to advise you not to sell MA over the phone for 3 months. I mean, when I bring on a new agent, it's just Medigap for 3 months. You will gain more sales than you'll lose, because the problem is once an agent is, if you have a wishy-wash agent on what's better, then you have a wishy-wash client. So when I bring on new agents, their first 3 to 6 months is they're just selling Medigap because it's a much easier sell because you can paint the picture value and you can't screw anybody's life up by selling a med sub. I mean, you really can't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just going in and I mean, there's some of the things you really can't say, but are almost true. Like you can use any doctor that takes Medicare, which is almost all of them. I mean, really for us, it boils down to network and pre-authorization is why we like pushing, not pushing, but advising that Medicare with a supplement is going to be a more free approach to utilizing your benefits than going with a plan that is going to be managed care. And I know that there's the reversed idea that managed care will actually help you stay healthier, but to this point, I haven't really seen that play out. In the future, it may change. I don't know.
So I just got a good question too. And are you liking the high deductible G over Medicare Advantage? That's a great question. What I actually loved the high deductible F and the high deductible G, and what most people don't realize is that deductible it's not like a normal $2,300 deductible.
It's a moot.
Yeah, well, exactly. Once they satisfy the Part B deductible, that's a great way to say it. You just said it better than me. Yeah. But once they satisfy the Part B deductible, Medicare is going to step in and pay 80%. So like they would have to spend like $10,000 or $11,000.
Basically, when I sell a high deductible F or G, and normally, we lead with, G and N, but when it gets down on budget, before we go to MA, we do say, hey, you have this option here. If MedSup is still an option for them, we're talking about high deductible F and G. We sell a lot of it in the under 65 space in states that allow it. And when we do that, I just tell them, hey, this is a plan where you can utilize regular Medicare, and you have a $2,300 maximum out of pocket on your Medicare each year. And I mean, that's what a high deductible F is. A high deductible G is a little bit different than that, but not much. So it's your 198 plus your 2,300. But
so another question is, how do you lock the client into the benefits of MedSup so they don't get swayed by the overwhelming advertising of MA? So what you didn't hear was on my T chart when I talk about MA. I like United American as well. Someone else just wrote, but on my T chart, which the people that we work with, I'm going to give my script to and everything. But the first thing we say on the T chart is Medicare Advantage is not a supplement plan. It doesn't pay the bills that Medicare would normally charge you. It's just going to replace them with their own set of bills. These are the plans you see advertised as zero premium, but you still have to pay your Medicare Part B premium. So it's really not zero premium. It's really the same price as Medicare. And the reason it's the same price as Medicare is because it doesn't pay the bills that Medicare doesn't pay. So we go through a couple hot topics. And then also on the sub side, we touch base on, do you see the value in paying for flexibility to go where you want to go and predictability to know you're not going to have any bills? And by doing that education approach and bringing up both options. Now, when I talk about Advantage, the way I do it compliantly for those of you guys, we don't talk about plan specifics. We summarize what an Advantage is. You can't talk about like Humana Gold has this copay and then go into a MedSup pitch. But you can go through a generic what a Medicare Advantage, how it works. And guys, I just did my Aetna coverage audit last week. Like we send our calls FTP every week. I mean, it's like we do it compliantly. There's ways to do it, guys. That's very doable.
Yeah. It's and on broker contracts, like the majority of people are on. I mean, you can do it without even recording your call. And as long, the only way you're really going to get in trouble is if you go out and do the wrong thing and put people on plans that aren't good for them. Don't check their doctors. Don't check their prescriptions and get complaints. And you'd still have to get a few complaints before probably anything was legitimately done to you. So you'd have to be a pretty shitty agent to get multiple complaints. So I don't think that's a real issue. That's it seems like the most common question we get is compliance. You say MedSup, you don't have to worry about it. If you sell them a MedSup and you write them a drug plan after that, they're already your clients, so they're on your book of business. It's very simple to write a drug plan after that. If you convert your MedSup client to a Medicare Advantage plan later, their book of business. So the compliance thing is most people that get hung up on it are just they've been led down a road that makes it sound more difficult than it is.
Last thing for me. So I read something cool. So, and this is something I teach my agents. So someone said, cool, just got in the habit of not using the terminology. So I always teach my agents, if you catch yourself using 2 jargon words, paint a picture. So if you say Part A deductible, co-insurance, well, this means this. So like when I say Medicare only pays 80%, you have to pay 20%. This means this. So this means when you go to the doctor, you pay 20% of the bill. This means if you get cataract surgery, you pay 20% of the bill. So I always tell, but if you catch yourself using 2 jargon words, paint a picture. And I'm telling you guys over the phone, you've got, so my closing thing, and I'll let you close up too, is I hope you guys got value out of this. If some of you guys are already doing this stuff, great. But I listen to hundreds of calls every day, and even the agents that I literally work with on a day-to-day basis sometimes will fall back onto explaining. A lot of it, is for whatever reasons. But paint the picture. You can never paint the picture and give too many examples and build value in your product too much on the phone or in general. But
Yeah, I agree, man. And we did have somebody just signed up, so we're at 8 members on the. We were calling it Medicare Monsters. I was telling people though that are in it, it's a telesales coaching. Medicare Bob and me will be very involved in it and talking about the way we do things. We'll both be doing independent trainings in that group and that coaching, those coaching sessions. I will be bringing in a couple of people that are doing final expense and stuff to do some lessons in there as well for the guys that are doing both, or even the guys that are still just doing final expense right now. I think most of you find that you're doing final expense will find that MedSup is extremely complimentary to the people you're already calling anyway. So it makes no sense. And we've seen several people that used to be final expense guys that got used to selling MedSup, and they've pretty much converted straight over to MedSup now. But either way, we're trying to make it for everybody, trying to work remotely, work from home, even work from their office without going face to face. And we're at 8. We're trying to take on 4 more right now because we want it to remain somewhat intimate while we're getting. The word intimate is weird, but we're wanting to.
No, but it's just so we can do a good job. I mean, you're managing your operation. I'm managing mine. I don't know what, my goal is to have a weekly call with each of these 12 people. And if they, depending on what systems they use and we help them, I mean, I'm hoping to see I'm excited to see what this turns into, but I don't want to call it a mentorship, but it's going to be, if I'm a face-to-face agent, I would have to understand that over the next, like the way that you do business is now changed. And it's not just going to be 8 weeks. It's going to be come annual enrollment. There's going to be more and more people that will ask you now, instead of like Brock, you're in-house and you probably, when someone calls you, you're like, well, yeah, we can just get this done by phone. But I think you're going to hear more and more people say, can we do this by phone?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people. I'm right now, actually, as soon as I get off the phone with you or off of this, I'm going to be selling a Medicare Advantage plan, a hip, and a cancer policy to a guy. Over the phone. We've already talked about it a couple of times, and he was just calling me back while we were on here. So, anyway, it's going to be great. It's going to be growing, and if you guys haven't headed over there to check it out, there's only a few spots left. It's justinbrock.clickfunnels.com/coaching. And we would love to have you over there. So talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great Saturday. All right. Stay positive. Everything will work out. But
wash your hands.
Yeah, wash hands. So, all right, buddy. Thanks, man.
Bye.